What's up guys, Duarte here with another Marvel Strike Force video, and in this video we are going to make a 2021 review of the legendaries that we have available in Marvel Strike Force and how much of an investment you should do in each legendary. There was a lot of shade being thrown at Adam Warlock last week, so we are going to talk about him and also the other legendaries, how far you should push them, where you can use them, and things like this. Once again, this is going to be based on the experience that we had on 2021. If you are watching this in 2022, maybe the characters had some rework and now they are a little bit better than they were. So let's start from the bottom. We have Iron Man, and unfortunately Iron Man is the least legendary of all the legendaries. His kit is nothing special, he was never relevant in 2021. There are a few combos that you can make with him, and I have a video that I never uploaded about this combo that you can make with Iron Man that is actually very interesting. Maybe I'll upload that video. And it's based on him giving crit chance to his allies. So with teams that rely on a crit chance like X Factor and some other teams, he can have minor use, but I would not suggest to anyone to gear him above gear tier 12, because once again he has minor uses maybe in Alliance Wars on a few combos, but apart from that is not good at all and not worth the investment beyond gear tier 12. And even gear tier 12, it's only for advanced players. Like if you're a new player, if you are using purple gear, don't invest in any purple gear on this guy. Okay, so that's Iron Man. Now we are going to talk about Star-Lord. Now Star-Lord is a very interesting character that unfortunately he didn't have the time to, or he didn't have the opportunity to shine on 2021. He was very relevant in the past, 2020, 2019, but after that not so much. The combination that he does and the abilities that he has, they are very good, but the stats that he have just don't keep up with the challenges that we face now, and the lack of synergy with other characters makes him not very viable. The survivability, it's always a problem, and because he's a hero controller, and for the longest time we had the Black Order, and that was a huge counter against hero controllers, he lost a lot of his value. And the only thing I know that some people are making use of him is some German players, some German alliance, where they are using him on the Doom raids, the Doom 2 raids. They are using him for the blind, but I think it's not something that you should try out. He's just way too weak, especially on the highest levels. Doom 2 difficulty 3, I'm very sure that he will not be able to keep up because of the lack of stats and the lack of survivability. He's definitely a very interesting character, and hopefully we'll see him being good again in the near future, in 2022. How far should you invest on Star-Lord? Gear tier 12 is fine. Beyond that, right now we have no reason. Supposedly we have some event with a Resolute tag being available, but we don't know how long the event will last and if it will happen multiple times. So just to invest in him for one time only, it's not going to be a good thing. Okay, moving on, we have Magneto, and Magneto is a very old legendary that still has a lot of value, and that's because of his ultimate, because of his passive, and also because of his special. The special removes the positive effects on the enemy, it has a nice focus, and it applies slow and disrupt. It can be very crucial in situations like Alliance Wars or some kind of PvP matches, something like this. The blind, putting all characters together, it's amazing. You can literally drop Magneto on any team and you'll always help by increasing the amount of damage you do with adjacent targets and so on. And in his passive he has a very interesting combination, which is whenever an enemy crits, he gives speed up to his entire team. So in the past he was very useful on RTA throughout 2021, but then they changed the RTA, so he was no longer as useful. But even today on the tower mode, Avengers Tower, and on Alliance Wars, I always use him because of how powerful his passive and the ultimate are. So in terms of investment, he is quite expensive, so I would take him to gear tier 14 and that's it. Beyond gear tier 14 is just way too expensive and not relevant enough, and it's not even necessary to get him to beyond gear tier 14 for him to be useful. Okay, moving on, we have Nick Fury. Now, Nick Fury is a very problematic character. He had some use in the past in the Ultimus raids, he was somewhat useful there. Then he had a little bit of utility on the Doom raids, on the skill nodes. But it's always a problem because of his minions. Sometimes the minions are helpful, other times are not. He has terrible stats, and even with the boost of stats that he has with the Kestrel, he's still not good enough. And the only reason why I would consider gearing him up now, it's because you unlock Omega Red with Nick Fury. He is very hard to unlock, you need 3 minions, it's super annoying to unlock this guy. But yeah, if you unlock him and if you gear him up to gear tier 14, you'll be able to get Omega Red, and Omega Red is one of the best legendaries in the game, so I think that's the only reason why you should invest on Nick Fury. Nick Fury can also do an interesting combination with his special, because he starts with a speed up and then you can share that speed up to everyone else. But for that you don't really need a huge investment in gear, just a little bit for him to survive 1 turn or 2 turns, and that's pretty much it. So gear tier 14 and beyond that, no reason to invest on Nick Fury. Okay, so we have Ebony Maw, and Ebony Maw, many people have mixed feelings about him, and me as well. I really like him. If you are doing Doom raids 2.0 or 2.1, Ebony Maw can be very useful there together with Thanos. Thanos as a fortifier, being the tank of the team and spreading tons of energy to the allies, and especially together with Icarus. Thanos giving energy to Icarus is very good. And Ebony Maw with his special, giving defense up and offense down to the enemies, increases the survivability and the mitigation of the team by huge amounts. Then he also has the ultimate, which bypasses dodges and dodgy characters and applies slow for 2 turns. That's very strong as well. And whenever you kill a hero controller, you get immunity, barrier, and you also apply ability block to the other hero controllers. So he's very useful. He is still very strong on the Dark Dimension 4, and even on Dark Dimension 5 you can get some use out of him. Right now the only thing that is a little bit less important is because the team where he belongs, the Black Order, has fallen off a little bit of the meta. He's still top 10, it's still one team that can solve a lot of problems, so it's not exactly top tier, it's not exactly the best character ever for all game modes, but it's still a very strong team for Alliance Wars. And now with the tower mode, I have used my Black Order multiple times, so it's definitely a character that you should have an eye on. Now he's a little bit expensive, but I think he is still worth it taking to gear tier 15. Beyond gear tier 15 right now, I'm not sure about that. We will have to wait and see, because we have a huge strain on the Mystic Gear, so if in the future there is more abundance of Mystic Gear, maybe you should consider using him on Dark Dimension 5 and getting him to gear tier 16. Because he's very helpful on the Dark Dimension, even with his long cooldowns, but together with all the other legendaries, they make very good combos that will kinda bypass the long cooldowns he has. Okay, so that was Ebony Maw. Now we have Phoenix, and Phoenix, she was very good in the past because of the Dark Dimension 3. But that was like 2 years ago, that was a long time ago. Since then they changed how Dark Dimension works, and her stats just don't keep up. She has very low stats, and when she dies, you need her to die, so you have Dark Phoenix, and Dark Phoenix is cool because she will always come with the cooldowns ready. The problem is that it's just way too hard to keep her alive. Even with defense up on your team, offense down on the enemies, she just can't stay alive for more than 5 seconds. This is from the lack of HP and the lack of armor. It's a huge problem. So she doesn't really cut it. Now recently magic was released in the game, and that gave a little bit more light to Phoenix. The problem is that the way magic works, magic summons Phoenix, but is based on magic stats and not on your own Phoenix stats, so that makes the investment on Phoenix quite irrelevant. Also, the ISO 8 doesn't work on her. You still have to invest ISO 8 because many matches where you use her, they attack the highest damage character, so you want to have Striker on her, so she's always targeted and dies first. But still, she just doesn't keep up. You can get some minor use of her on Alliance Wars, but outside of Alliance Wars and maybe Avengers Tower, outside of those two game modes, you get no use out of her. Okay, so let's move on. We have Shuri, and Shuri has a terrible past. She was supposed to be the meta, the Apex team for raids, but this was for Ultimus 5. Now, on that time it was Fox Next. They took so long to release this team. That we were already at the end of Ultimus 6. The team was supposed to be released on Ultimus 5. It was released on Ultimus 6. So when they came out, the Wakanda team, they were so outdated already that they were mostly irrelevant. Now she's still cool, she gives defense up and gives energy, and that makes her a little bit useful. She also gives deflects on raids, and this doesn't rely on her stats. All of this is kit based abilities, so gearing her up, it's not necessary. The only reason why you want to gear her up is just to make sure that she stays alive. She has very terrible stats, even at gear tier 15, and the use that you get out of her kit, it's nice for the first 1 or 2 turns, but after she just can't keep up, and especially because she dies right away. You can still get some use for her on the Doom raids, on the tech nodes, but it's circumstantial, is not really super effective. It's like you are trying to cover a big hole by using a very small cover in. So she helps a little bit, but she fixes no problem. Outside of raids, she has barely no use on Dark Dimension, or very little use on Dark Dimension, very little use in Alliance Wars, and yeah, so if you want to invest in her, I would not go beyond gear tier 14, just make sure that she has the right ISO 8 in order to be able to use her on the Doom raids. Okay, so moving on, we have Invisible Woman, and Invisible Woman, it's another legendary that was always trash, the same as Shuri. She came out, the Fantastic Four came out, they had some utility in Alliance Wars on offense, then they had some utility on Alliance Wars on defense, but this team lacks so much in sustain that they can't just stay alive. They have a lot of mitigation, they have the barrier, they have the offense down, they have the defense ups. That's nice, that's a lot of mitigation, but in terms of sustain, healing and so on, keeping themselves alive, they don't have. And the team falls off very quick, and because she is a protector, she gets into conflicts like other characters like Yo-Yo. And yeah, she is a little bit slow, it's a little bit problematic. You can still make some combinations between her and Doctor Doom, because Doctor Doom will give her energy and turn meter whenever she goes below 50% HP. So it's kinda nice, but there are very few places where you can use both of them at the same time. So it's quite lame. She is almost on the border of being usable on Arena, but she needs some minor fix to her kit or to her stats in order to allow this. So unfortunately, you could use her on the Doom, not the Doom raids. You could use her on Dark Dimension, but it's once again a character that is trying to fix a problem that is much bigger than they can fix. So it's just a small cover, and yeah. So it's up to you. She's not as expensive as Shuri, so if you need a bio character for the Dark Dimension 5 or Dark Dimension 4, you can use her. Her abilities once again are great, but she needs other complementary characters like Dr. Octopus and Adam Warlock or Omega Red in order for making the team to work. So yeah, she is barely okay. So let's move on. And we have Adam Warlock. Now, last week Adam Warlock was getting a lot of shade, and I really don't like the fact of this, because it's nonsensical. Adam Warlock is one of the best legendaries, and yes, there are other mystic characters that dolphins and whales have, and maybe even free-to-play players. They have the New Warriors and the Eternals and so on, but Adam Warlock is a legendary. He's required for Dark Dimension 4 and for Dark Dimension 5. He requires miasma, and that's another problem, because a lot of good characters involve that, but that's a good sign. It means he's good. His kit extends negative effects, blinds and other effects, offense downs, defense downs and slows and whatever, making him very powerful. He also does a ton of damage with his abilities. One of those abilities can stun 2 characters for 1 turn, which is huge. Then you can extend those stuns with characters like Dr. Octopus. That's why they are so strong for the Dark Dimension 4 and for Dark Dimension 5. And he also has one ability block that will also disrupt protector characters on the field, and also ability block other villain protectors. So his kit is very strong. On top of that, he has 2 lives. If he dies, he will revive once again, so he's very powerful. The stats are huge. He has insane armor and insane health, insane focus, so it's very likely that he will always land his abilities. So he's definitely a character that you should invest on. The team where he belongs is still one of the top teams right now for Alliance Wars and even in Arena, and you can use him in raids. He's a great option for the Doom raids, Doom 2. For the boss node is very useful there because of the stuns and the ability blocks and disrupt. So he's definitely a character worth investing. Don't look down on him, and even if you have other options, he's still a character that you can plug and play, and he'll fix a lot of problems that you might face. Okay, now we have Black Bolt. Now this was the legendary that fell off the most. He was very strong before in raids. He was okay in Dark Dimension. He was also very strong in Alliance Wars and even on Arena meta, because whenever he kills an enemy, the enemies cannot be revived, and in specific situations that's huge, and especially now that we have so many characters that can return from the grave. And yeah, he is quite powerful. His cooldowns are a little bit longer, but he has sources of energy. He can remove positive effects from the enemies. He can attack characters that have dodges and evades, which is very useful on the current meta. And his ultimate still does a nice amount of damage, even that it has no secondary effects. In terms of stats, he is still huge according to the current meta. HP is still very high, the damage also very high, the armor not so much, and the focus is pretty decent for him, also great resistance. and all of his abilities do damage. So the basic, the special and the ultimate do damage, and the passive also does damage whenever enemies go on the red. He burps on them and they die, and after they cannot be revived. So he's still very strong. Now, should you invest on him? Right now there is no good place where to use him. Dark Dimension, raids, arena and so on is not useful anywhere near that. Minor use in Alliance Wars on defense or on offense, so I would not take him beyond gear tier 14, and I think that's a sweet spot for him right now. Okay, Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus is a very underrated character. He does so many things, it's just great. So one thing that people forget about is that whenever you use Dr. Octopus, your entire team is immune to offense down. So if you are facing a Yo-Yo, or if you are facing Ebony Maw or any other character that applies offense down, your team will be immune because of Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus can apply speed up to adjacent characters next to him, whether it is normal characters or summoned characters. Also applies deflects, and he summons Shocker, which is a character that can help removing deflects from the enemies and doing some nice amount of damage because he does piercing. He also applies 2 turns slow with his basic, and this attack cannot be dodged, so if you are facing certain characters that dodge a lot, like Spider-Man, Ghost or some other character, he can be quite convenient. Now, the best part about Dr. Octopus is the second effect from his passive. Whenever he blocks, he's going to heal up the entire team. It's not for a big amount, it's like 10% or something, but he has a huge amount of HP. And when you are using it in combination with other characters that maybe provide mitigation but not sustain, he can cover those holes that the other characters have. On top of that, when you have him together with characters like Adam Warlock and Ebony Maw, he can extend the negative effects on the enemies, and that's just huge, because you can apply like 2 stuns with Adam Warlock, and then you are going to extend those 2 stuns for 1 additional turn. If you are using Ebony Maw, you apply the offense stun for 2 turns, you extend that into 3 turns. It's very useful, and it solves a lot of problems in different game modes on the raids, on Dark Dimension, on Alliance Wars, offense and defense. Also on Avengers Tower is very plug and play character, not only with the Sinister Six but also with any other character, and is definitely a character that you should get as high as possible. Right now I have him at gear tier 15, but I'm definitely gonna take him for gear tier 16. Okay, now we have Jubilee. She was a little bit controversial character because not many people understood why Jubilee was a legendary, but I think it's okay. I think she gets the point across with her team, and she's quite nice. With her abilities, she is able to apply blinds to the enemies. She also has a stun. In raids, she applies offense down and slow to the enemies. She also applies slow to all enemies on Dark Dimension. She can spread the negative effects on the enemies to the entire enemy team. She is quite useful. You can have her together with other mutants or with X-Men, Uncanny or Astonishing. You can use her with X-Factor, X-Force. Anywhere you have mutants, you can place her there. She is very strong on the raids. She is very strong on Dark Dimension because of the slow, because of the blinds, because of the stuns, and the spreading the negative effects. So she's still very good. Now, in terms of stats, she doesn't have the highest stats. She has an okay amount of armor, an okay amount of HP. The damage is also okay. The biggest problem is the focus, so you really want to make sure that you have the right ISO weight on her in order to take the most advantage out of her. She is also a little bit expensive to gear up, and unfortunately the centerpiece of her kit, of her gear, is not the greatest, as it doesn't provide any additional damage, and the amount of focus it gives is actually quite low. So is she still a character that you should get to gear tier 16? and use her on 2022? I think so, because of the Doom raids that we have right now. She's very strong there, together with the astonishing X-Men. And like I said before, you can still get some good value out of her in the Dark Dimension, and she definitely has a spot on Arena, not on Arena, on Alliance Wars and on Avengers Tower. On Arena she's definitely not useful there, but yeah, so Raids, Dark Dimension, Avengers Tower, Blitz of course, and Alliance Wars, offense and defense. Very strong there, together with their team, and especially when they are facing any kind of summoners, the team becomes even better, because they can take advantage of her passive that gives turn meter to the entire team whenever any type of enemy is defeated, minion or not. So yeah, you should definitely invest on her, Gear Tier 15 for now, and eventually when you go for Dark Dimension 5, you can also consider her as a possible option. Okay, finally we have the last legendary that was released, and this guy is huge, not just in size, but his kit is beyond amazing. His kit does so many things that is just crazy. He gives himself speed up, death proof, gives defense up to the entire team, gives a ton of max health to himself, also crit chance, so it means you have a lot of options in terms of ISO 8. It also reduces the damage of the enemies. He does so many things, and he has a special effects on Alliance Wars. But he doesn't shine only on Alliance Wars. You can use him in the Doom raids, you can use him on Dark Dimension, you can use him in Arena. He's very strong character, and it's not only because of his stats, it's also because of his kit. Being able to turn rewind the enemies, apply ability block, slow, heal block is just massive. Flips also all negative effects on the enemies, so once again, together with Dr. Octopus, you can flip the positive effects into negative effects and then extend them. Because of this additional turn rewind, it will give a chance for Dr. Octopus to extend all of this. It's just great. And then we have his basic. His basic, when you do it, and if you have ISO 8 Striker, you are stealing 10% plus another additional 10% with ISO 8 attack, and sometimes the stealing 10% does more damage than the ability itself. So sometimes you use this ability, this part gives like 100,000 damage, but then this one will give 200,000+ damage, which is huge, and it heals him up, gives him a lot of sustain, and it bypasses heal block, which is crazy. Very useful on all the game modes I mentioned. You also extend the bleed, slows and offense downs, which will increase the mitigation and survivability of this character. In terms of stats, he is just huge, almost at 1 million HP, also very nice amount of armor, and also a very nice amount of focus, which allows him to apply the negative effects even without having the skirmisher ISO 8. So he's quite great. He's definitely a character that you should get as fast as possible to Gear Tier 15, because he is usable on so many game modes. He's also very plug and play, you can put him on any team and he's still going to work just fine. And I'm gonna take him to Gear Tier 16 and to Dark Dimension, not only because he is quite cheap, but also because of his kit is so versatile, and I think him and his team will be relevant for a very long time, the same way like the Brotherhood 3 years after they were released is still very useful. But these guys are just on the next level and way more versatile than the Brotherhood ever was. So yeah guys, that's going to be the video. I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts on the legendaries and how useful they were throughout 2021, and if they have any chance of being useful in 2022 if they don't get any reworks throughout the year. So I hope you guys enjoyed this information. If you did, like always, make sure to smash that like button, and if you like the video, make sure to share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and I will catch you guys later.